So, how far out are you booked right now, or do you even consider yourself booked out? Is it something that you just kind of call the clients whenever they're or whenever it's approaching roughly 8 weeks and then you put them on the books? Or are you, when you look at your schedule, are you booked out for weeks, months?
Right, right. Yeah, it does. I don't say it in like an arrogant way, but like essentially, the the simplest way to say it is like I'm booked out all year, all the time, um,
Indefinitely.
indefinitely. Yeah, just because I now have people calling. Like for example, I actually added two new maintenance clients to my list the past from this past summer to now. I have added two maintenance clients, a bit against my will, just because they called so persistently, and over the past year have actually been calling. And so I decided, okay, if you guys are going to call that much, then I'll go ahead and put you on the list. But that's kind of what I mean is staying booked out. Essentially, there's not a time. The way the business is structured now, I have to turn away around 90 to probably 95% of people who are calling me now.
Now, why do you think that in your area that you kind of like dominate this market? Like, what has your business done differently than maybe other detailing companies?
Yeah, honestly, and this is probably not the answer people generally are anticipating, but for me, it definitely came down to, um, gosh, I'm trying to think the best way to say this. It comes down to, I would say, connections. It's a little bit of an oversimplification to say that. Um, the clientele that I have, generally speaking, are not the moms with the minivans who are taking their kids to and from school. Um, Probably 60 to 80% of my clients are entrepreneurs who have done pretty well, and they have certain cars that they really don't drive, that they want detailed, which a lot of times I'm not able to get on video just because they're a bit more private individuals. And then outside of that, uh, different sort of what you might call self-employed but highly specialized people, like doctors, people in surgery, people who run different, like say like law firms, CPA firms, things like that. So I guess my answer to the question is I'm better at communicating and building relationships with people than I am even at detailing, and that has been something that has paid very high dividends for me up to this point.
So I'm curious, was it always like that? Because as a detailer myself, those are the clients that I went to. Like, I want the people who don't have or don't want to make the time to detail a car because their time is more valuable than that, and they would rather pay someone 50 to $100 an hour to do it for them, and they would gladly pay every month or every 8 weeks to have the vehicle done. So did you start out with the moms and the minivans, and then did you just find one particular entrepreneur and it just kind of broke out from there? Or how did you was it just
Totally.
first right off the bat started out with entrepreneurial clients?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think it was definitely not black and white. So yeah, it definitely started out with anything and everything, as anybody does, right? It's like you're I don't know that there is another way to start out. I think a lot of these guys really, really want to start and they don't get results in 2 weeks and they wonder what's going on. And it's like, oh man, this is going to be quite a perspective shift for you. So um, outside of that, what ended up, yeah, happening is there were some key people that started to trickle in over the years, particularly when I really went crazy with the maintenance client strategy, as I call it. And in that, yes, you could probably, like, there's a great book called The Tipping Point. No, is that it? Yeah, The Tipping Point by Malcolm Gladwell. And I think he's written so many books. I think it's in The Tipping Point, but he talks about people that he labels as connectors, that you can, generally speaking, most people can trace back basically everybody they know to anywhere between like 5 to 10 people. And that's a bit of the phenomenon that started to happen in my detailing business. But in addition to that, um, I was never I was never only detailing, I guess, in a sense. So detailing for a long time was my main driver of income and was the main sort of like maybe quote unquote asset I was trying to build. But in addition to that, whatever dividends were coming from that business, I was always using that to kind of do different things. And of course, 4 years ago, that became the online world. And so, in some sense, a lot of these guys were just interested in talking about the unusual, maybe what I'd call model that I was trying to pursue that wasn't the usual way of doing things. And I think that kind of sparked their interest. Maybe they saw a bit of a twinkle in my eye and wanted to talk about it a little bit more. And that was very helpful as well.
Okay, so you say that you kind of linked every client back to like a group of like 5 or 10 people.
Yeah, in some sense, that's true. Yeah.
Okay, and then how would you say what was it that how did you discover those 5 to 10 people to start,
Yeah, yeah,
or even that first person? If you want to like link it back really to one person that
right.
took it off, did they just find you online and gave you a chance?
Yeah, several of them were that. In fact, I'd probably say most of them that. It is kind of hard to remember, to be honest with you, because it's we're talking about years ago now. And I can remember, like, of course, let's say there's 20 key people. Out of those 25 particularly stand out in my mind. But it's not like a linear, like if you were to look at it mathematically, it's not like a linear progression where it's like one person led to another, which led to another. It's more like this person led to this person who I didn't detail for, but that person who I didn't detail for led to these two people. And out of those two people, this particular one had this particular relationship with these three people. So it's a bit of a, maybe like permutation would be the word, it's like 5 times 4 times 3 times 2. Um, so yeah, I mean, you ever heard of like the butterfly effect? Like people use that term
Sure.
yeah, to describe like, a butterfly that flaps its wings in like Indonesia could cause like a hurricane in Florida. Um, and it's actually based on a mathematical theory called chaos theory, and that's kind of what I'm talking about here. It's like um, you really are not going to be able to anticipate the connections and the lack thereof, and the results of the connections and lack of that are going to lead you down particular roads. And that is really what ends up happening in the detailing business, in my opinion, when you really pursue it. Essentially, yes, the net that I cast was online, but from that net was built a strong, strong, strong word of mouth and referral net that was way more valuable than my online advertising.